Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. I'm your host, Louis Padian. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts to be kept up to date. Hello, and welcome back to today's episode where we will be covering overcoming no and low motivation. One of the most common things I hear is how people feel that they can't improve their health, they can't eat better, they can't move more, they don't do the things they want to do because they're not motivated. And they're right. If motivation is low, it makes things really, really hard. But hopefully after today's episode, we can find some ways to overcome that. You'll have a better understanding of what motivation is and how we can utilize other tools to make sure you're engaging with these healthy habits, eating better, moving more, even when motivation is non-existent or even a bit low. So first of all, I think it'd be useful to cover what is motivation. And in short, motivation is the driving force behind everything we do. It's the why behind our goals. The reason we get out of bed in the morning. It could be why we're striving to improvement, why we're doing the things that we do. That is the motivation, the reason why. It can be split into two things. One is called intrinsic, which is like that internal drive, and that could be down to enjoyment or even a sense of purpose, or we can have it as extrinsic motivation, which is stuff outside of ourselves, such as rewards, praise, or even recognition from others. And whilst they're both really important, research supports that intrinsic motivation is a lot more effective and impactful with behavior change. So yes, use recognition, use praise from others, use rewards, but understanding internally things that you'll enjoy and having that sense of purpose of why you're doing things you do, that will take us a lot further. So now that we know what motivation is, understanding why it might be low, being able to spot the signs early, and hopefully being able to identify the issue will help you find ways around it, really. So one of the common ones, people are burnt out, they're overtraining, overworked, they've got too much on their mind, constantly pushing, and that can lead to people just feeling absolutely burnt out, depleted, low on motivation, and leaving people feeling exhausted, really. And this often happens when I sit down with clients and patients that they've got so much on, they're living in a highly stressful environment. I wouldn't expect them to feel motivated all the time. And often us finding ways to make things a bit easier for them, how they can potentially delegate some of those responsibilities and tasks or manage their workload a bit will allow them, give them space to work on their motivation or find things that they can be motivated to do. Second of all is a lack of clarity. So people having vague or severely unrealistic, so people having goals that are far too big, that can leave them feeling really low motivation because they're never really going to see any progress towards it. That can be really demotivating, and especially if they don't have a plan in place. So if they're just planning to, I'm going to run a marathon on this date. Well, how's your training look? I'm going to eat healthier. But what does that actually mean? How are we going to do that? Where are you currently and where do you want to be? And it might seem like I'm being pedantic, but these things are really important to identify. Yes, you don't want to get caught in the details and caught in the weeds, but actually having a plan, looking at the process, understanding what's realistic, what's manageable, allows us to really, really build that momentum. And without that lack of clarity, or without that clarity, it can really lead to people just throwing everything out after a couple of weeks because they don't know what they're doing, they don't know where they're going, don't have a clear plan in place, and it's easy to lose sight of what the end goal is going to be because they just feel overwhelmed by it all. Next up, fear of failure, and this can be almost like a self-sabotage thing. People fear not being able to succeed, and often people fear that even if they put on all the effort in, what happens if they fail? So actually, if I don't pull the effort in and I go in it half-assed, then you know what, I wasn't even trying anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So there is that fear of judgment of yourself that if you do put your all in and you don't make it, then what's that going to mean? But unless we actually put all our effort in and we focus on what we want to do, then we'll never know if we can make it or not. And when people are really scared of this failure, they can be almost paralyzed by it. It can prevent them from even starting and taking action in the first place. So having a bit more of a clear plan and being a bit more manageable and making sure that they understand that it's not the outcome that they're going to be judged by. Often judging us by our effort and our process is a lot more important. Last but not least, lack of support. People not being in a supportive environment can really, really get people down. If you are going against the grain, if you're going against the group that you're in, what's deemed as normal behaviour, it can get people's backs up and that can really get you down. So trying to get that supportive environment and being in the community that engages with it or supports you can be really, really helpful. Big question is, but
Do we need motivation? Often, not really. It can be really helpful, but it's not necessary. I'll give you an example. Are you always motivated to brush your teeth in the morning? Probably not. You probably still do it. So motivation is missing there a lot of the time. We're tired, we're short of time, but you realise the importance of the task. You understand why it's necessary. That intrinsic motivation can be there, and that can help you in building it. But more importantly, and this is a big part of this, often motivation is fleeting, but discipline, what we call habit formation, helps us do it more consistently. So focusing on building these healthy habits can help you achieve your goals even when motivation is really low. Habits are almost like those automatic behaviours that occur probably without any conscious thought, and we often hear about how long does it take to build a habit. It can vary massively. They say on average it's around 66 days, but it can be much shorter than that, and it can be much longer than that. Depends on the complexity, depends on how easy it is to do, and things like how enjoyable it is. All these things are really important, so don't judge yourself if you're finding stuff hard after a couple of months still. If you're 4 or 5 months in and you're finding the habit of something really, really difficult, there's lots of things we could do to probably make it a bit easier, but often it's very individual based and very task and habit based of what actually is the context that you're trying to achieve that in. Another key part of this is focusing on progress over perfection. I'm a massive fan of this. We're not trying to be out of 10 all the time. We're not trying to be 100% motivated. I don't expect people to turn to my sessions always motivated in regards to their nutrition or their activity. Often when they're not motivated, and they can be honest with that, that's when we sometimes have our best sessions, because we can get to the root cause of it. We can understand that actually taking action leads to motivation. Often people wait around for motivation to happen, but motivation comes from doing things, from the proof and evidence that you can do them, and you become more motivated the more often you do it. So turning up even when you're not motivated, and that's where we have that discipline and that habit formation, is really, really important to developing a more reliable motivation moving forward. But even if it's not there, you've still got the habit and the discipline to lean back on as well. So a few different strategies that I've already touched upon, but I thought I'd categorize them to 6 different things to overcome that low or no motivation. First of all, really, really big one here. People often try to bite off more than they can chew, and that is to break down your goals and barriers. Divide your large goals into smaller, more manageable steps. Break it down, even if it feels almost too easy. Make it too easy to miss. If you're trying to build up to a stage of like being able to do 30, 40, 50, 100 press-ups, however many, right, that could start with doing 1 a day. Well, that seems too easy. Well, we're trying to build that consistency. That consistency over time will add up and build that progress over perfection. And even turning up and having that gym session that was a 5 out of 10 or even a 3 out of 10, that's better than a gym session that didn't happen. So giving yourself and managing your expectations around that as well, that you're not going to go, if you're feeling pretty rough, if you're a bit sore, tired, haven't slept very well, then maybe reducing your expectations on that session, making it a bit more adaptable to what you're able to achieve. So you're not going to run yourself through the ringer as if when you turn up and you're fully motivated, full of energy, full of beans. Being a bit more kind to yourself and being able to judge that is really important as well. But making the journey seem less daunting, making it a bit more flexible, a bit more adaptable to what's achievable for you, being a bit more reactionary to how you're feeling, what trends are looking where, if you potentially need a bit of a week off or down, and pull back a little bit. That's all really important stuff as well. And then it's make the habit or the journey, whatever you're trying to do, as easy as possible. Momentum is probably the biggest thing, and it's probably one of the most common words I use a lot of patients and clients about building that momentum. Taking it step by step rather than trying to go 0 to 60, going right, let's take it step by step, build up that consistency, that confidence. So the ability for you to be able to do things, and competence, your skill in doing that thing as well. Those two things are really important. That confidence and competence over time allows you to build momentum and really see that progress kick on further down the line. Second, something that I've already touched on, is get support in place. Connect with friends, family, a group. If you're trying to achieve something, being part of a group where that is a common thing, or the habits and behaviours are common things, being part of a community where that's acceptable and promoted can be really, really helpful. Help with encouragement and accountability. So it can be massive. Even if it's just one friend that you go for that walk with, or that accountability that you message each other a couple times a week to check in how things are going to be, healthy eating, sharing recipes, all that sort of stuff. Really, really important. Number 3, reward yourself. We're often really good at punishing ourselves, but actually one of the things that we need to do is celebrate your success. And one of the biggest things I often sit down with patients and clients around is looking at what went well. They often start the session and tell me about things that are going wrong, and I'll be like, actually, hold on. You've mentioned so many things I can see from your weigh-ins this week, from your food diary, from your activity log, from your feedback form, or all the things we spoke about during the week, that actually you're making a huge amount of progress. So let's not skip past that and look about the 5%, 10% that isn't going 100% to plan. Let's acknowledge that you're actually taking action, that, yeah, gym sessions might not have been perfect this week, but you've showed up, you've got them in, so you're doing really well. And making sure that you can book that in and reward yourself and plan those things in to help with that motivation is really, really important. So making sure those rewards are aligned with things you're trying to do. So if you're trying to lose weight, it could be something food related, but it could be something else. It could be booking yourself in for a massage, it could be getting some new gym kit, it could be paying for a PT session or an online coach, whatever it is. Once you've got to a certain point, using that as a reward. One of the things that I do a lot with clients is they come in with a weight loss goal where they've got to lose a couple of stone, or their goal is to lose a couple of stone. We will have markers in place where we'll go, right, let's aim for the 5 kilos. First 5 kilos over the next 5, 6, 7 weeks. Hopefully we'll hit that. We'll move towards it, and guarantee those last couple of weeks before they hit it, they're really pushing because that goal is in sight. If I set them a 5 stone target from the get-go and that was the end goal, that first couple of weeks would be absolutely soul destroying, because even though you're making progress, you are still miles away from where you want to be. So having those milestones in and those rewards along the way, reminding people to get them in, is really, really important. Number 4, as we've said, identifying why you're trying to do that. Like I said, the intrinsic motivation is so important here. Connect with what your health goals are, what your values are, those deep motivations. If you're trying to improve your fitness, for example, connect with your desire or your goal of spending more quality time with people and being able to do those activities that you want to do, being able to take the stairs at work, being able to play with your kids, your grandkids, being able to take the dog on a longer walk or walks out into nicer places where there's a bit more challenge. All these things are super important and motivational, and having a visualization with this is really important as well. So picturing what the end goal is and what you're able to do, that probably helps you understand why you're trying to do that. And that can be really, really personal, can be really, really emotional, but it's really, really impactful. Having it written down somewhere, having that task done is super effective in helping during those difficult times when motivation's low, when it's been a rough week, when you've been overworked, when you feel like you can't get back in the rhythm of things. Understanding why you're doing this it can be so deeply empowering to you and motivational to, right, let's start making that, building that momentum and making that progress again. Number 5, and this is something that often people don't do either, it's focusing on the enjoyable options. People sit down with me and go, I'm not motivated to go to the gym or to eat rabbit food. Well, we don't need to do those things. What do you enjoy doing? Well, I enjoy going for walks. I enjoy Zumba. Brill. You know what? Let's try and schedule those in. People are more likely to do things that they enjoy, and trying to make these habits and behaviours. Yes, it's not the strength training that people might say is that you need to be doing, but it's better than nothing. And actually, it might be a bit of a gateway for us to try other physical activities moving forward. But if we can get you doing Zumba, if we can get you doing rhythmic dance, whatever it is, even just dancing in your kitchen a couple of times a week with music on, that can have a significant impact on your health. But it also builds that confidence over time, and gets people to believe that, you know what, I can do this. Maybe I should try that thing that was too scary to start with and I wasn't motivated to do. And actually, I'm more capable than I realised. So focusing on those more enjoyable options just makes people more likely to stick to it, not even when their motivation's low, but long term, build it into their lifestyle. They see the value in it, they see the importance of it, and see not just the physical benefits if they're trying to lose weight and gain muscle, but the mental benefits, the social benefits. They might have a community that they're a part of, that they really enjoy the activity, and they go there to catch up with their friends as well. All these things are all part of our health, our overall health goals. Last but not least, and this is something that I've touched upon, but I thought it was really important to finish on, is remembering it's about progress. It's not about perfection. It's not about being a 10 out of 10. It's not about being super motivated all the time. I set my alarm sometimes at 5:30 in the morning, and I work long days in the NHS doing health coaching. I'm not always motivated to go to the gym in the morning, but I built the habit, and 4 or 5 days a week, I'm there around 6 o'clock. And sometimes it's a good session, sometimes it's not, but building the consistency of turning up, but I always feel better after it. And I know that, and that's probably one of the things that keeps me back going. I know my lower back pain is less likely to come back if I'm strength training and doing all my exercises around my core and looking at my glute work and all that sort of stuff. I know I feel better when I am strength training and able to stick some music on and get a bit of frustration, anger, whatever it is, or just even get a really good workout in that gets my heart going, I feel better for that. I feel better first thing in the morning for getting a session in early. It sort of sets me up for the day. I know that this isn't me saying this is how you should do your day, but I know that being part of the progress and looking at that and knowing that actually building the habit of turning up rather than looking for the 10 out of 10 session is really is really important, and the only thing I need to look at, actually know me turning up and being part of that process, looking at just progress over perfection, understanding that setbacks aren't permanent and those bad sessions don't define me. I always talk about with running, and recently it's probably been more than a third, but the rule of thirds with running and probably most exercise sessions is that a third of sessions will be great, good, really enjoy them. A third of them will be all right, average. They'll be, you know what, that was decent, wasn't the best, but wasn't the worst. And a third of them will be rubbish, and that's all part of it. And sometimes when it's a rubbish one, you've just got to tick it off and go, that's one of those thirds. That's okay. If you have a few thirds in a row, you're probably due a decent or a good session. So keep on working for those, because that's what keeps you going. And big part of when I'm working with people is is reflection on this. So again, not seeing it as pass or fail, good, bad, yes or no. It's right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did this week go? Well, it was about a 6. Well, we were about 4 last week. So what's changed? What's improved from last week? Because yeah, it's not a 10 out of 10, but we've doubled us. We've gone up 50%, which is fantastic. How can we make sure that we're getting at least a 6 next week, or a 7? Or if we've got a tough week coming up next week, how can we ensure that it isn't a 0 out of 10? What sort of things can we put in place to ensure that that tough week, that challenging week that usually takes us off course, that we really struggle with, how can we put some things in place to make sure that actually we're still able to get a few things done, reduce our expectations, that we're looking at that progress over perfection? We might say, right, next week, usually we might do 3 or 4 gym sessions a week. We might hit 10,000 steps. We might hit our 5 a day. We're going, oh, that's brilliant. That week comes up. Well, what's the expectations next week? Well, the expectation next week is just get through it. Maybe 1 to 2 portions of fruit and veg a day is what I'll manage. Maybe 2 or 3 gym sessions, maybe 1. Depends how it goes. And I might try and aim for 5 to 6,000 steps. That's probably a lot more manageable for people who are rushed off their feet that week, rather than us going, right, no, you've got to stick to 5 a day and 10,000 steps, 5 gym sessions. They're going to go, what's even the point in that? I'm not going to achieve it, so what's even the point in trying? And that's where we get that mentality that we need to try and look at process and progress and not perfection. So hopefully it's been enlightening. Hopefully this session's helped with you understanding that you don't need to be motivated all the time. We need to build those habits and make sure that we're giving ourselves the best chance building those habits over time, that we don't need to be super strict on ourselves, that we need to focus on the process, making sure we've got clarity, reducing the fear of failure and understanding that we won't know unless we give it our all, and look at the effort rather than the outcome, and looking at the signs for burnout as well. That's something that we touched upon earlier. So we've covered a hell of a lot, but hopefully you've got some strategies there to hope you overcome those days on no or low motivation and build that progress over time.
Thank you very much for listening to the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier and happier and more balanced life in the process, just click the link below and inquire about working with me. But remember to subscribe wherever you're listening, share it if you think that people might find it useful, and I shall speak to you soon.